welcome to the KU Community Webinar Series. I'm joined by Dr. Jamal Alsawalhi. Welcome.
Good morning, Jade.
We're going to be talking about energy and power transfer and all things related to that. So why don't we start with what is energy and why exactly are we talking about this today?
Well, thanks for having me here, and that's a good question. So let's define what is energy first. So energy simply is the ability to do work. Okay, so if I want to lift an object, I need some energy to do that process. If I want to drive a car, I need some energy to make that car move, and so on. Now, our dependence on energy has been increasing, and since the 17th century, there was the Industrial Revolution that took place, and that made the use of energy and the process of finding that energy and using it much more easier. And that made things like transmitting electricity efficiently something that we take for granted today. So this has been increasing. As I said, our reliance has been increasing on energy, and now in this century there was this report by the International Energy Agency in 2020 that forecasted that by 2040 our reliance on energy, or our demand for energy, will increase by around 20%. Now, one can say, okay, that's not a problem, we can just build more power factories, power generation factories, and so on. But there's an issue here, and the issue here has to do with climate change. So as you know, there's a lot of talk on temperatures rising and so on, and we want to limit that. So with that, there's a dilemma. Okay, you want to increase the energy resources, you want to have more energy produced, but then at the same time you want to limit the greenhouse gases that are coming from burning all that oil, which is, by the way, oil and gas, how we get most of the energy we have.
Yeah, so the demand that we have for energy relies heavily on the oil and gas sector.
Exactly.
That's then contributing to climate change, which we need to stop. So I suppose the next question would be, how does this tie into the idea of green energy? That's another thing we hear about a lot these days.
Exactly. So, of course, there's no color for energy, okay? So there's no such thing as green energy. It's just a term used. But what we usually refer to when we say green energy is renewables. And the most common types are solar energy and wind energy, and there's also some hydro energy also that can come into this category. So green energy is being discussed and presented as a solution to, again, to increase the energy resources, and at the same time not produce any harmful greenhouse gases, which is, again, something that is a major challenge for this century, and we're trying to find a solution for.
Should be fairly easy for us. We're in the middle of the desert. Yes, we have plenty of oil and gas, but we also have an awful lot of sunlight.
Okay.
So we should be fairly okay in the solar side of things, but how else is the UAE helping to contribute to this?
Well, that's something interesting, because people think that since we have a lot of sun that we can just build solar panels and things will be...
Can't we?
Like,
we could just cover the desert in solar panels?
We can. But the problem is the climate here, or the atmosphere, the concentration of particles in the atmosphere isn't very ideal for that process. And there's another problem here, which is how would you store that energy? Okay, so you capture some energy in the day, but then how would you store that? So you need batteries. And that's actually one of the things that we will discuss, one of the big problems in the topic of today. So there was this initiative in 2012 by the Ministry of Environment here in UAE, and it's usually known as the 2015-2030 agenda. And in this agenda, there are 5 strategic objectives defined. I don't want to go in details on these, but they all are part, or an effort, again, to limit the greenhouse gas emissions, which, again, where do we get these greenhouse gases emitted from? From producing energy, and also from transportation sector. And one of the 6 objectives that were defined in this initiative has to do with limiting greenhouse emissions from the transportation sector, which is the topic that we are talking about today.
Meaning transporting everything in the world, not just energy from one place to another in form of like oil tankers, but in terms of all forms of transport, including personal transportation.
Exactly. So airplanes, cars, ships.
Yep.
So all of that goes under
everything
transportation.
That moves.
Exactly. So we want to limit greenhouse gases coming from this, and there's a lot of research and actually opportunities that can be used to solve this issue.
Well, there's been a lot of talk about electric vehicles,
Exactly.
ones that run on battery power.
Exactly. So that's actually what's happening nowadays, and that's where a lot of research and efforts are being directed. So if you look and you read about it, a lot of countries worldwide are putting mandates that by a certain deadline, some of them I think 2030, we're talking about 2030, I think in France, I'm not sure, but
I
you can
think
look
the
it up.
EU was 2030.
They want to stop producing what we currently have, which are called internal combustion engine vehicles. And all cars that will be produced will be electric. I think I just read about Volkswagen, for example, they have that initiative. And many car manufacturers, they want to stop producing internal combustion engine cars and just focus on electric vehicles. So that's one of the initiatives. Now, what do electric vehicles bring to the table? You might ask, right? So the simple answer is, or to understand this properly, let's understand how internal combustion engine works. So any system, when we talk about energy, consists of a storage system where I store this energy, a system that converts this energy to useful energy, and then we can use this energy. So in an internal combustion engine vehicle, we have that energy stored in the form of gasoline.
Okay.
Right? And then we need to convert this for a useful energy that we can use to move the car. Now, how do we convert this? We have this component called the internal combustion engine. Now, in that conversion is where the CO2 and greenhouse gases are emitted. And that's what we want to limit. That's one thing. Another thing, by the way, that conversion is not efficient. So, for example, if you have 100 joules, for example, of energy stored in your gasoline, just around 30 joules is used to move your car.
Well, where does the rest of it go?
Is lost as heat. So it's a very inefficient process. So that's another issue with the internal combustion engines. So if we move now to the electric vehicles, we have, again, a storage system and a conversion system. So the storage system here, the most familiar one is lithium-ion battery packs. I guess all of us heard about it. And the conversion system is an electric motor. So we have that energy stored in the battery, we send it to the motor, and we convert it into mechanical energy that can move the vehicle. The conversion is much more efficient, so you have 90% efficiency in that conversion, and there are no greenhouse gases emitted.
So
Ideally.
it's the perfect solution.
So it is, we engineers don't have anything perfect, especially students know that, we don't give hundreds. So it's 99%, let's say, perfect. But there are some issues. There are still some issues with electric vehicles, and that's where research is being done right now.
Can you give us an example of those kind of issues? I mean, we don't see a huge amount of electric vehicles on the streets yet.
Right.
And there's got to be a reason for that.
Exactly. So the numbers are increasing definitely, especially now. There's a lot of, as I told you, a lot of manufacturers and policies to have more electric vehicles produced and used in the streets. So it's increasing, but there are some bottlenecks. So one of them, actually, all of these come in the battery, in the storage system. So the main issue is the storage system. So if we look at the battery, to help you understand the situation here, let's imagine you have a 1 kilogram of gasoline on this side and 1 kilogram of lithium-ion battery pack on this side. So the amount of energy that this 1 kilogram of gasoline can store is 100 times more than what you can store with the lithium-ion battery pack.
So you'd need 100 batteries to handle 1 kilo of fuel.
Kind of like
Yeah,
that.
that's a heavy car.
So that's the energy density, yeah. So what's the issue with that? It brings two things. First, I need more volume, obviously, more battery packs to have the same energy stored, right, in a car, and to drive the same distance. And it increases the cost a lot. So that's one issue with electric cars, their cost, when you compare them to a relative or a comparable internal combustion engine car, their cost is higher because of the battery packs. There's another issue. So you're driving from here, from Abu Dhabi to Dubai, or from here, from Abu Dhabi to Ras Al Khaimah. I don't know how many miles or kilometers is that, but imagine that you're driving and you run out of energy in your battery. So you need to charge. So there are two issues. One is infrastructure. Do we have the suitable infrastructure to charge these electric cars? And second, which is the main issue here, it's the time needed. It's the time needed. So if you just plug your car to a wall plug here, you're talking about 12 hours to charge from 0% to 100%.
So my drive that usually takes me about 90 minutes.
Think about your iPhone. Imagine, would you be able to live with an iPhone that takes 12 hours?
No.
No, right? So of course an iPhone is a small system, that's why it charges faster, but if you talk about electric vehicle, it's a bigger system and it takes 12 hours if you just plug it to the wall. We have designed more faster chargers. There's research done on that. There's the fast supercharger. And if you use that system, which costs a lot more than the normal one, you're talking about 20 minutes. But still, if you compare 20 minutes to the time I need to to fill an oil, gasoline in my internal combustion engine car, it's much more, right?
So, are there any
So
solutions to this?
charging is a big issue here.
There's got to be a solution to this.
There are some efforts being done. Yeah, there are some efforts. So out of these efforts, one of them that is what we work on here in KU is wireless energy transfer.
Yes.
So what is wireless energy transfer? Simply speaking, I mean, it's not a new concept. And actually, if you want to go even to nature and bring an analogy there, I can say it exists 4 billion years ago. So, we know all about the sun, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so a sun is an energy system. And we get energy from the sun every day, right? So that's some form of wireless energy transfer, right? Without it, Earth won't exist, life won't exist. So, of course, there are many differences with this analogy, but it's the same concept. So we want to transmit energy wirelessly. There's no wire. Last time I checked, like one of my colleagues say, there wasn't a wire connected from the sun to the Earth, right? So we want to transmit this energy wirelessly. How is that wireless energy transferred? How is that energy transferred? It's the same concept that we use when we talk on the phone. It's made possible using electromagnetic waves. Okay, if you use your internet now your Wi-Fi, you call your friend, you're using electromagnetic waves. So that's one research effort that's being done, is to charge cars wirelessly. Now, what does this bring to the table? Is it more faster? Is it more efficient? Actually, not much. I mean, it's comparable. It's not much faster. The efficiency is not that different from wired charging. So what does it bring to the table? It brings convenience. It's as simple as that is. So imagine a situation where you have an electric car here in KU, you park in the parking spot, you exit your car, you go to your office, you don't have to worry about anything. Your car is getting charged automatically without doing anything.
So I don't have to worry if I did plug it in or not.
Actually, when you park, if you don't see anything, there's this system under the surface which automatically detects your car presence, starts charging automatically, and as you are sitting in your office, your car is getting charged, and maybe you're sitting for 6 hours, so that's a good time,
Yeah.
to get some
That
energy
makes
in your
life
battery.
so much easier.
Exactly. That's one situation or example of convenience. Another example, which is very popular in research, is what we call dynamic charging. So I'm driving again from Abu Dhabi to Dubai. I have this big highway. On the 4th lane, we can install these wireless chargers under the surface, right? And as the car is driving, and that's where the term dynamic comes, as the car is driving, it gets charged.
That's clever.
Yeah, and that's, by the way, that's not even, that's not only in research, it has been implemented. There are real cases in the streets. One of them, most notable one is in Korea. They have demonstrated that, and it's running. It's running perfectly, and
it sounds so simple.
And it is simple, but there are some, technical challenges, cost.
Yeah.
To dig and that infrastructure, it costs a lot. But it can be.
That's why it's not so widely deployed then.
Exactly. So cost is an issue. There are some issues. So cost, alignment. So for example, if I have the charger under the ground and my car is here, now let's say you're not what are the chances that I'll park perfectly above it? It's not that high, right? So there's some deviation maybe. We call this misalignment. So when there's a misalignment, these systems are very sensitive and the efficiency won't be that high. So that's a technical challenge. There is some research to address this, and it's going on right now.
And I'm assuming that's what you're working on here at KU.
Yes. That's one of my research areas, and we have actually a nice project between KU and the Korean Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, KAIST, which is again the same university that implemented the dynamic charging in Korea, the one I spoke to you about. So there's this project going on, as I said, and it's led by my colleague, Dr. Khalifa University here in KU. And we have actually produced some journal publications on this. We have built prototypes in our lab, And we would love you guys to come and check it out anytime you want. And we have again a number of PhD students and master students working in this area.
Just to wrap up then,
Yep.
it sounds like you're fairly hopeful for a future where this is widely deployed and we're all driving electric vehicles.
I think so. I think this will be a key enabler for electric vehicles, and especially when we talk about electric vehicles, there's a category or a subcategory of electric vehicles known as autonomous electric vehicles, right? So as the name implies, these are autonomous driving vehicles. There's no driver there. So let's say you have an autonomous vehicle running and it runs out of energy. So there's no driver again there. So it needs to get some energy in the battery. So the only way I can think of where it can get charged autonomously is using wireless energy transfer. Again, you don't have anyone to plug a cable. So that will be a key enabler, as we say in research. And I hope so.
Dr. Jamal, thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot, Jade, for having me. Thank you.